Hi, everybody. Hello. Good morning. It's another beautiful day on my Take Show. Hi, guys. Glad to be here. My name is Adenike Ezra, and this is my Take Show. And I'm excited to have my girlfriends with me. I'll let each of them introduce themselves, starting with Lola.
Hi everyone, this is Lola. Nice to be here today.
Good.
Hi everyone, good morning. This is Bookie. I'm glad you ladies have me on again. 2 weeks in a row, or two broadcasts in a row. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. I am from sunny, warm England, so it's afternoon for us here. So it's lovely to see everyone and glad to be part of this conversation. I'm Dami.
Yay! Fantastic. Ladies, always a joy to be here. And it is a beautiful summer day. And we are looking to have some real conversations here on My Take. So, My Take is a forum where we ladies hang out, unwind, chat about things that are happening around us, lend our voices to some of the social issues that we see in the world today. Truly, our goal here is to really promote a culture of love and compassion, as well as speaking truth with a whole lot of candidness. On today's episode, we're keeping it real like we always do, and we're going to be talking about how to deal with our emotions when we have been deeply hurt by a loved one or by someone that, we feel maybe we really cared for, and we're really just struggling to let it go. For those of you who remember on our last episode, we talked about some real life issues around deception and betrayal, especially in marriage. We had some scenarios that showed up in marriage, and boy, was it very eye opening, very engaging. Our audience were just on point, just sharing, their thoughts on the issues. But we knew that, to really talk about this, the reality of it is that betrayal and deception would happen even outside of marriage, can happen in all our relationships with friends, with siblings, colleagues at work, or neighbors, even trusted leaders. But I tend to find out that the weight of the sense of a betrayal or deception is heavier depending on either the depth or the intimacy in the relationship and the level of trust that was in the relationship. So this morning we're really going to be, just talking about hurt. Help, I'm hurt and I can't let go. It's almost like a part two of what we talked about. And Dami, I know you weren't on the last episode, but you are very passionate about this conversation, and I know you have a lot of thoughts about, the whole, betrayal, deception, forgiveness, dealing with the emotions. And I'd like to hear some of what you think as well.
Thank you so much, Nikki. And I think, like everybody else out there, we've all been hurt at some point. We've all been betrayed. It doesn't necessarily have to be within the confines of marriage. It could be within friendships. And I know that there have been many books, because I have read many books, and my shelf in my study is filled. My Kindle is filled with so many books on how to get over hurt, how to move past a betrayal. There've been many books, there've been many discussions, and dare I say, many reality TV shows that have tried to address this topic, that have tried to also make light of the topic. But it's a very complex concept, I believe, betrayal and hurt and unforgiveness past it. And I think that these concepts are experienced by every single person, but we all seek a very similar end result. We're all seeking healing of some sort of personal healing. We're all seeking some kind of repair to the relationship, if it is possible. We're all seeking some repair of trust, or regaining of trust, or rebuilding of trust. And then we're all seeking forgiveness. And I'm hoping that with this discussion, we all start to share, and we really, start to unpack and the layers that we can start to make sense of it. I don't think there's one answer fits all. I don't think there is a snap out of it response, or answer. I think betrayal, hurt, and unforgiveness I really liken it to grief. It's a process. In some instances, you can restore the relationship, and in some instances, you might have to just let the relationship end, and be okay with it and heal with it. So to our amazing audience out there, please put your comments, put your questions, put your thoughts. We really want to engage with you all as we start to unpack this. So I'd love to start with the first point, if that's okay. Then I'll throw it out to you ladies to share your thoughts. Because, like you said, Nikki, I'm quite passionate. So I have been betrayed, and I have been betrayed by a few people, but the one that hurt the most was by a very, very, very close friend. And I've always had this conversation when I've talked about, you know, the post impact of the betrayal, is that I believe that true forgiveness is a byproduct of healing rather than the cause of it. And I found that for me to get to the point of being able to forgive, I had to heal my own heart. I had to do work on my own self. I had to accept that if this person never asks for forgiveness, if this person never apologizes, if this person never even reaches out to me to acknowledge the hurt that they caused, not just me, but my entire family, because this almost ruined and broke my entire family. If they never come back to me to say, you know, whatever it was, or to even call me or send me a text message, would I still be able to move past this? Would I still be able to heal my heart and move on? I know that from a psychological sort of standpoint, forgiveness is almost never a viable topic before the repair or the healing process is complete and some degree of trust has been restored. So, and I really do subscribe to that. And I wonder if, and I'll come to you first, Lola, whether you agree that forgiveness truly is, you know, is the crux of the whole process, or it's a byproduct of the work that we need to do internally within ourselves. And then I'll share my thoughts. So Lola, what do you think?
Yeah, thanks, Dami. And, you know, I think for me, it works the opposite way for me. And I think it's because early on as a child, I was a very sensitive child. And I think that I got bruised a lot quicker than people realize. So if I was going to wait for people to acknowledge or make reprimands or whatever before I got to that point, I'd be waiting forever. And so I trained myself. I'm very, very strong in mind over matter and a lot of things. So I trained myself that I'm just going to decide to forgive. And then that has worked over the years to help me to get to the point of healing. So, and I don't know, maybe to some extent we're saying the same thing, and to some extent it differs a little bit. But for me, I just make up my mind. Like, I'm going to let it go. It's almost like a cutting off process. I remove the power from the other person immediately. It's like, I've forgiven you, I've let go. You have whether you come back sorry, whether you don't come back sorry, whether things, that's it. And I place that person where they need to go. And then I allow my healing to come whenever it comes. If it never comes, if it comes, good. If it doesn't, that works for me. I don't know if that's the right thing.
I hear you.
But that's what's kept me sane, I think, through the years.
And I think I think Lola is, I have, a bit of a similar view to it, and it's so interesting. It can morph into different times when you get to that state. What I mean by that is, some relationships you would naturally, in my case, I would actually be, you'd want to repair it. You go through that process of giving that person the opportunity to maybe say, this is what you did that really hurt me. Like Dami, you were saying, that it could be a friend and you really want them to understand. I know sometimes they're like, no, but this is what happened, which is why I did that. No, but this is, so you sometimes go through that process of wanting to heal the relationship, have both of you be on the same page, understand each other, and hear that, now that you said it this way, I see where, this may have been misconstrued. And then you're like, they may ask for forgiveness, or you may just feel heard and then you can forgive. Sometimes it's worse because in the process of really trying to break it down, you hear other things that makes you say, wow, oh, wow, okay. So this is really how you even see this. And you then, to a certain extent, like Lola said, you now make a decision that, I'm going to let this go. Although the core issue, you don't feel understood, or and you feel this might mean you put some new boundaries around the relationship. And you do that first, and then you forgive. What I'm going to find very interesting about this show is, sometimes the healing can take a year or two. You still think about it. So have you not forgiven? At what point do you know that, you react in a particular way? Or could you in your heart feel you've really forgiven and everything is fine? But sometimes you're like, let me just move away from this before. So you've sort of, something has been left on you because it was never closed. And for me, that's quite interesting. And I think I'm adding to it, so adding to the wisdom, I want to hear from you guys as well. So that's why I feel, like Lola said, at some point you need to be able to forgive even where there's no healing. But sometimes for me, and I'm sure for all of us, there's a process of trying to get to healing before you get to forgiveness. And I guess it's at a point you just say, this isn't going anywhere.
Buki, any thoughts?
So many that kind of but when Lola was talking and Nikhil was talking, but Lola kind of passed a comment about, I forgive and I just kind of put them in a particular box, something to that effect, And Nikhil brought up the question: did I truly forgive, or did I just decide to move on? You can, while you can have some level of healing even without the forgiveness, what happens, and then I think it was Dami that mentioned that the depth of the relationship, well, Nikhil, that the depth of the relationship really determines, how painful the situation is for you, or how hurt you become. So there's some relationships that, there's some deception in there. You could just say, okay, no biggie. I'm just going to make up my mind. It's not, the Bible, you hear they say, oh, let go, let God, that there's some really cliche comments that we tend to hear around forgiveness, right? Or they seem cliche anyway, when you are in it, in the middle of it. And so you tend to, there's some relationships that you can say, no worries, no biggie, I move on. It's not, if I see you, hi, but then that's, the level of our relationship can allow us that ability to compartmentalize it and put it in a box, right, where it belongs. But there's some relationships that they can't be put in a box, right? You have to face those issues head on and deal with it. And so, there is this concept of, I mean, to teach like conflict resolution, right? Conflict resolution can do one of two things for you. It can either build a better relationship in the way that it's handled, or it can break it down. And so, having that conversation and walking through why it happened, sometimes, like Nick said, it unboxes more things, right? It unboxes more situations. You get even more hurt from the circumstance, because now it's like, I was not about to say it in my language, kill so. No, we're talking about what all of a sudden we're here, and then it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. But sometimes conversations are necessary for that to heal, because sometimes when we feel like we've been deceived, or we've been hurt and we can't let go, there is a cause for it. Why were we hurt? What happened? What happened in our relationship to cause this to happen? Because if we don't deal with that, then it can happen again. So if we're in a relationship where we cannot avoid, we can't compartmentalize that particular relationship, it has to be all or nothing. There's some relationships like that. It's all or nothing. Otherwise, you tend to find that then it starts to fizzle away, and the purpose of the relationship is not, satisfying what it needs to do. So a lot to say, but there's a lot that needs to happen in order for true healing to come through, right?
Oh, thank you so much, Buki. And I totally, everything everyone has said, I totally resonate with. And I saw one of the comments talking about the cliches of forgive and forget. I know that that's been thrown out, for so long and so many years. And I want to believe that as human beings, we've grown past that forgive and forget. Now it's about, how do I deal with this issue? And in my case, it's so funny because listening to what you've all said. So the big betrayal that happened to me in my life now had two very key players involved, right? One player was my father, and the other player was a very good friend. And without going into too much detail, what had happened was my friend and my father had an affair, right? Which, when it came out, when I found out about it, because I found out the same minute my mother found out about it, and about the same day that my siblings found out about it, it was a huge blow.
Wow.
I'm the first of 4 kids, right? And I have a very special relationship. My dad passed away now, and I still have, even though he's not here, but I have a very special relationship with my dad. We were very close. And, you know, no one's perfect. Yes, we know that. And we're all flawed human beings, and thank God for his grace. And my dad did have an issue with adultery. It was one of his mad flaws that we were working through, but I never thought that my friend would partake in this situation, right? What happened? She had removed herself from my life in a very weird way, because I kind of wondered why we don't hang out as much as we used to. She doesn't come around, we don't talk, but she was still I still considered her she lived with us, like she was still a very dear friend. And when all of this happened, when all of this came to light, it was very shocking, like I said. And I was confused. I was angry with my dad. I still loved my dad dearly. I was angry with my friend. And I know that I started to feel resentment, towards her. So I had to deal with anger with my dad, and can I forgive my dad because he's my dad, and then try and work this through with him, because I know it's been an issue for many years and then my friend, how do I unpack this? If I'm forgiving him, do I forgive her? But no, I can't forgive her because she took advantage. She was let into my safe space, which is my home. And we were adults. I was in my 20s when this happened. And I really battled and I fought. And then I had a third impact, which was my mom and my siblings blaming me. Well, you brought her into the family. You introduced her to our family. If you had let her not, and then I'm caught in the middle. And it was such a tough space to occupy. And I totally cut her off, literally night and day. No phone call, no text message, nothing. Don't reach out. I'm not reaching out. Whether you live, you die, I don't care. I don't want to know. But I had to deal with my dad because he's my dad. And I spoke with him over a course of time, and I was trying to understand, but why? What was it? And you know how some men can be? They just have nothing to say. They just have, and I don't even know if that's even worse, when there's nothing for them to say that can justify the anger and the hurt and the pain. Yeah. But fast forward all of that. So my dad and I, worked through it. It took about 10 years, but we worked through it, and we spoke at length at different, key milestones in our relationship before he passed away. And I got to a place of understanding, not 100% understanding, but I had to accept that was what had happened, and that it was what it was. And he had apologized, and, we were trying to mend this. My friend never reached out, ever, for about 15 or more years, never reached out to me until 2020.
Wow.
COVID. I guess we're all sat. Sorry, I'm taking a while, but we'll move on quickly. But 2020 hit, we're all sat at home, and I'm thinking, okay, everyone's got time to think through their lives, right?
Yeah.
Just in case we die before we have time to talk. And I see this invite pop up in my on the gram, on my Instagram page, and I have a private page on Instagram, and I saw it's the invite, and I'm thinking, who is this person? Lo and behold, it was my friend. The anger, which is why I talk about healing. For me, I need to heal me. I don't care about healing the relationship. I don't care if we never get back to how it used to be. None of that means nothing to me if I'm still broken within. So I needed to heal me. And I thought I had healed me until I saw that message, until I saw the invite or the whatever it was. And it took So every day I'd go back and I'll look at it, and I couldn't accept it. I couldn't confirm her as, to come into my space on Instagram. And I'd look at the invite every day. I did that for the entire year of 2020. And then 2021, I accepted. And I prayed about it. I'd spoken to my husband about it. I had kind of gone back and forth, and I tried to find out, why was I still feeling some sort of way about this, And then I accepted. And then she sends me this long, message apologizing. She can't explain it. She doesn't know what happened, blah, 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 and all of this. And I replied, she wrote, it was extremely long. And I just said, thank you. Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for acknowledging. Thank you for trying to make an attempt to explain, even though nothing you say can explain what you did, because what you did was major. It was life-altering for me and my family. But thank you. And then she reached out again and again. And I'm like, okay, slow down. Slow down. And this is a really good segue to our next point, which is forgiveness then necessary to rebuild betrayed relationships? Like, do me building a relationship, if I choose to, back with her or back with anybody, do we then need, if we're talking about healing versus forgiveness, do we then need to forgive before we can rebuild? Or can we just let it go and then rebuild? What do y'all think?
Can I say something about? Let me say something real quick about. My take on forgiveness, just in general. At the end of the day, I feel like forgiveness has really nothing to do with the second party or third party, whoever, outside party. It's all about you. I feel like God, when God talks about forgiveness and he talks about, all of that, it's really for the individual that is experiencing that. Because in order for you to truly, get to a point in your life where you don't go to the emotional strain that occurs when you have to engage or interact with either the same person or be in a similar situation, because life happens, or take your hurt and your baggage to another relationship, right? It is all about you healing yourself, right? Forgiveness is all about you as the individual. It has nothing to do with the other party, because like you said, they may never come around to what's going to happen. Are you going to, leave your life in limbo for 15 years, 20 years, just because the other person hasn't come around or even approach? And they could have done it for multiple reasons, not out of malice, but maybe out of the shame of it all. But, you're not depending on the other party to be engaged in your healing process and in your forgiveness process is key. I think that one thing that you do need when you were on this journey of forgiveness is God. Because as much as we try to do it, it's such an emotional and a painful place to be. And especially when, it just throws your life in total disarray. You have no clue what to do next, just being able to, and this is sometimes where, if you don't have that relationship with God, if you don't have, it's hard for me to even understand how people just live life, because life in itself can be very brutal and be very tough. And so having that ability to lean on God and lean on his strength and not our own, and lean on his grace and not our own. At the end of the day, I find that sometimes when some certain things happen and I feel like, oh my God, this is so whatever. After, leaning on God and not focusing on the issue and, just trusting in God and looking at, how should I handle this? What should I say? How should I behave? What should I do? All of a sudden, it gets to a point where I wake up one day and it's like, when last did I think about this hurt? It's been a while. You kind of, as if you get over it, kind of like organically and seamlessly. Life kind of moves on. Hurt is not as bad as it was. Now, forgiving someone, and I don't know if I'm going to take a different curve. Forgiving someone doesn't necessarily mean I have to let you back into my life. Right? That is, I was just saying now, just because I forgive you, like I said, it's all about you as an individual letting go of that emotional and mental and physical baggage that comes along with hurt and deceit, you know.
Yeah.
Because for some people, it can be so bad that they start to hurt themselves, you know, in any different shape or form. So getting to that point where you're able to forgive not just the individual and the people around you and the outcome of the situation, and learning to
Yeah.
move on from it, is really about you and your physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being.
And mental. And
And
mental.
mental, yes, all of them.
So, all of it.
Mm.
Lola, what's your take?
Yeah, so I wanted to just take a step back for us to kind of define what forgiveness is,
Okay.
because I think that, that's important to define as we talk about it. And, when I looked it up, it says forgiveness is a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance towards a person or group who has harmed you.
Mm.
Right? So a
Mm.
conscious, deliberate decision to release those feelings of resentment.
Mm.
And I think that it takes different things for people to get to that point where they can release feelings of resentment. Some people I need you to explain what happened so that I can understand, so that I can release it. Some people feel, I don't need to, it doesn't matter what you say, right? Nothing can explain this harm or hurt. So I need to come to that place of releasing on my own, regardless of what you do. In your particular situation with this friend, you worked through that process with your dad, but you never got to work through that process with the friend. So it was almost like it was put on pause until that person showed up. And then that's when you're kind of like, it reset, and you had to work through that process to get to that point with your friend.
Absolutely.
So I think that where Buki is talking about, like, it's really for you, because that release of resentment, it eats you up. The person is going about their lives. Who knows what she was doing with her life for the last 10, 15 years, right? All of a sudden it's like, okay, the person wants to have a coming to Jesus thing before they pass on. I don't know what the reason is. Then they bring themselves back into your space and world, and you have to deal with that. So what if you had kind of held on to that every year, and it was affecting your life for the past, your day-to-day life, your relationships with other friends, innocent friends that are coming into your space that you could have been loving and giving and opened your home with, right?
So true.
But because of this one friend's action, it's like it has altered your life in a different way, right? So I think that going back to what is forgiveness and making that conscious decision that, I need to release these feelings because it's eating me up, or it has the potential to affect my life negatively. I'm doing it for me. And even if the other person isn't worthy, I mean, think about like repeat offenders, people that just come, and I've heard some like atrocious stories, or the closer that person is to you. Like, how do you deal with forgiveness with your spouse? Someone that you have to go back to bed with that night, or you have to, or other people in your space or close that are close to you. We have to kind of deal with this thing of forgiveness, and how do I deal with it in order to continue relationships that I can't let go, that it's not easy for me to compartmentalize. And that's where it challenged me.
Yes.
Because like I said in the beginning, I'm quick to cut you off. I'm like, okay, you did this. It's okay. No, don't worry. I've released you. I feel nothing. Nothing. It's okay. Your life.
Bye, Felicia.
When it's someone close to you that you can't cut off, you have to deal with that. How do you deal with that? And that's been a lesson in my life I had to learn in marriage.
You're so wise, cousin.
I tell you, Lola.
This is an area that I learned. I feel like I still deal with, but I learned early on. It's one of those, and there's some things that I'm still learning, but this area is one area that I feel like I had to come.
It's a continuous learning. Yeah. Nika.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, I think Lola has said it all, and probably, but just pulling together what, the theme for today, where it says, first of all, true or false, forgiveness as an intentional act is not necessary to rebuild betrayed relationships. So I think we're saying that's false.
Mm.
right? Is that correct? I hope I got it right. So
Yeah.
forgiveness is, because you can't rebuild betrayed relationships without forgiveness. That's, and that's the bottom line. You can't heal relationships without forgiveness. And I think what today's show is helping people listening, that I know a lot of people are aware, especially from last episode, there was a lot that came out. Sometimes after the shows, we get texts, we get WhatsApp messages from people, and we heard stories, and we're like, oh, this is not easy. And I think what, Lola and Buki have said is forgiveness is, first of all, necessary for there to even be any form of healing in the future. Now, uh, let me rephrase that. Sorry, help me. Forgiveness is necessary for there to be a restoration of betrayed relationships. So forgiveness is necessary for there to be a restoration. But the forgiveness may not come from that person. You need to do it for yourself. And I think, and it was a point that I think one of our audience members made, is there is that part where, as Christians, faith-based people, a lot of times we feel not allowing that person back into our lives means we haven't forgiven. And I think that's something Lola said that was very key. And I think that's what some of the challenges are. When, that you have to be able to separate and put people into buckets. There are some that they're too toxic, you don't let them back in.
Yeah.
However, for family relationships, between siblings, we've seen situations where we have family members. Somebody who haven't spoken to my sister in 5 years. I haven't spoken to my sister or my brother in 7 years. They did this, they betrayed the family, did blah, blah, blah. And I must say, Dami, thank you so much for sharing. Sometimes on the show, when we have these sort of conversations, we actually use some of the scenarios that we know are occurring or have been shared on social media. It's not because we don't have real life, but we also respect everyone's privacy. So it took a lot for you to share this with everyone, because you're making it very, very real. What's so real is that you brought the two scenarios Lola was talking about. The scenario where it's a family member, you can't get away. The second scenario where it's a friend you could put in a bucket and deal with. And I feel that maybe it's important, if nothing else on today's show, to really help all of us, because we say, hurt, I can't let go. And what we're saying is that first, you need grace and prayer and strength and reading and journaling and maybe seeing a therapist, because to help you walk through everything you need to get to forgiveness for those relationships that you can't, or ideally shouldn't, just remove from your life. When you think about it as a parent, there's some situations where, and I know because I've had, challenges with, my dad as well, that we've been able to work through. But if I didn't work through that, he wouldn't have seen his grandchildren. He wouldn't have experienced birthdays. And their parents now, and their family members and their siblings, that they see on Facebook that my niece and my nephew is doing this, but they are missing out on life because of the fact that people are not able to forgive, even though the person may not have, done what is needed to ask for forgiveness or the rest of it. And you still need the process. You said something, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dami, you said it took 10 years to heal the relationship with your dad.
Or more. Yes, it did.
Of course, you probably all saw each other at family occasions, but
we did. We lived in 2 different countries, so that didn't help. But sorry, Nika, just to put it into context, my relationship with my dad about the issue, right? We were able. I was able. So I had dealt with it within myself. Obviously, being a wife, being a mom, and having experienced lifing just in general, right? But I was able to heal this part with my dad 6 months to the day when he was shot and killed, and that was the end of it with him. 6 months. I literally, it was 6 months. So we started talking again about it in August, and my dad was killed in December, and that was the end of that. And I was so glad that those 6 months we were able to be honest. I didn't look at him from a place of my father, because I'm now, I'm a grown woman, but I looked at it from a place of a man who was now broken, who was imperfectly perfect, as we all are, and me as his daughter, yes, but also an adult who was now having to talk through the different emotions and not get too emotional about it.
Mm.
And it did wonders. For the 6 months I had with him before he was taken away, it was amazing. He saw his grandkids. I was able to process it, and it really helped. And I didn't realize, yeah, redeeming time is so important. And I didn't realize how much my heart needed that, because I thought I was fine. Oh, it's been 15, however many years. Oh, I'm fine. I can deal with it. Yeah. So it really, yeah. I totally echo everything you're saying, Nika. Really, really do resonate with it.
That's beautiful.
I just want to comment on something about.
And I'm going to segue into our. Oh, I think Buki, you want to say something? Go on.
Sorry, I was going to say something about forgiveness too. There is an aspect of it that, like Lola, in the definition of it's a conscious effort. And I think sometimes we actually do not realize that forgiveness is needed or necessary. I mean, you could say, I'm fine, I've moved on, blah, blah, blah. But have you truly forgiven? Have you truly released that hurt? Have you truly released those emotions that come along with the betrayal and the hurt that come in? A lot of times sometimes we intentionally hold on to that hurt because we don't want to forgive, because what we know would happen sometimes is, if I forgive you, then it means that this relationship has to be restored. And so we want to hold on to that bitterness sometimes for a little longer, just to show how hurt we were, just to show that this thing was really deep, just so that people can see that it wasn't a fleeting emotion for me. It really hurt me deeply. And so we want to use that as a tool to say to everyone else, especially that's watching on, that, hey, this really hurt me and it's going to take a while. Whereby, sometimes, we could really kind of like dig deep into that situation and say, let me deal with it. What do I need to deal with it? How do I need to deal with it? What is it that what really hurt me most about the situation? And what really hurt me about the circumstances and I'm gonna piggyback on your scenario, Dami, if you don't mind. If in the scenario with your friend, if if the communication with the friend had happened much sooner, I dare say that the relationship with your dad would have been restored a lot earlier as well. And so, even though you may not understand how people, why people do what they do, because they will just do what they do, I actually also don't believe that you have to be dependent on their reaction and their emotion in order for you to get to where we get to. And as I'm saying this, I'm kind of speaking to myself as well, because like Lola said, it's an intentional act. It's intentional. You have to, if you, and sometimes we don't even want that relationship restored. I don't want it restored, so forget it. I'm going to hold on to my, and that's why some people will say they're going to hold on to their bitterness to the grave. So
that's scary.
Yeah, thank you so much, Buki. And absolutely, it is intentional. But I think the flip side then to not forgiving is, then do I choose to continue to live in unforgiveness? And I have seen firsthand, someone living with unforgiveness in their heart for decades, and how that just eats away at the beauty of life. How that just, it's almost like you stop living. You yourself just stop living, because you just have no room for anything fresh and new to flourish. So just that leads into our final discussion point, which is it true, or can we say that trying to forgive whilst in pain is almost impossible? Can we start the forgiving process, or the forgiveness process, whilst we ourselves are still deep in the throes of the pain, of the betrayal, of the hurt, of whatever it was that's been done to us? It's almost like, and I think there's an analogy that I used, which I said, it's almost like you're trying to put out a fire in an oil field, but you haven't sealed out the walls of the oil field, so the fire just keeps coming up. It might go out for a little while, but it takes a little bit of fresh air to come in, and it reignites. It might die out for a little while, so how then do we navigate that space of, I'm in pain, I'm hurting, dare I say, I am bleeding, I can't make sense of all of this, but at the same time, I want to forgive so that I can move on. That dichotomy, how do we navigate that? Lola, the wise woman of today's session, share your thoughts. Let me put you on the spot for this one.
No, I don't know. I really don't know. I think, I don't know. As you were talking, I was thinking about different scenarios, in my mind for this. And I would imagine that if you are in pain, the act of forgiveness is harder to do. And I think that people should be given the space that they need to work out the emotions and feelings that they need to work out. Sometimes if you don't need that much space or that kind of thing, you're impatient with people. And so you might rush them to say, this thing is still paining you since this thing that we've moved on since, you're still talking about it. But people are different.
Yes.
Exactly. People are different. People come with different background, different emotional, personality-driven emotional ways of dealing with things. People come with different experiences that it makes it harder for some people to let go based on maybe their background, how they grew up, what they've had to deal with. Some people are scarred. They have multiple layers of scarring. And if someone comes and unknowingly opens the same wound that has been opened multiple times by different people, So I think it depends on the scenario. It depends on who. It depends on what the situation is in order to make that kind of decision. I don't feel like one thing we can tell people this is the one way to do it, right? Other than in the Bible, God says that really it's for you. Forgive so that other things can, so that you can heal. And like if we're looking at the biblical sense, it's almost like forgive first, healing comes after that.
I do want to, because your question, Dami, was like, can you actually, if you're in the middle of the pain, can you actually forgive, or do you have to let the pain come? I'm like, how do you get over the pain if you don't forgive?
Yeah,
that's my thing. I feel like you need that forgiveness to come in. For the pain to actually, come down. Yeah. Can you be like, it's not angry. You didn't say anger, right? So I can be angry about something in the moment, right? And be first, I don't want to talk about it right now. I'm angry. That's different from I'm in pain. How are you going to get over? I don't think pain doesn't naturally go away.
Yeah.
Pain needs to be addressed, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain or whatever. There's a root cause for it. And if we don't address that root cause, it's hard for that pain to go anywhere. It's just going to linger. It's going to be there. So, in order for that pain from an emotional hurt to occur, or whatever it is, or from someone that hurt you to occur, you do need to start that process of forgiveness, and starting to heal from it. That's my take.
Yeah, no, and I totally hear that. And that's not truth with me. So I don't necessarily, so I hear that and I totally appreciate it, but I don't subscribe to that. Just for me.
Okay.
I feel, and it's really, my husband has that viewpoint also. And I'm like, no, that's fine. And it makes 150% sense.
So what's your viewpoint, Dami? What's Dami's viewpoint?
So my viewpoint is this. For me, and this is from experience, right? This is not from books I've read or talks I've listened to. This is my experience of how I have been able to deal with the issues of healing and forgiveness, trying to put the horse before the cart or the cart before the horse. For me, I need to heal. So something has been done to me. I need time. I need to understand how why I'm responding to it this way. I don't even need to hear from you. I'm not the person who needs to come to you to ask you, why did you do this? Didn't you know that? Were you not the one? I don't need to do that. I'm the kind of person who I know a lot. I'm an absorber. I absorb things. So I take it in and I need time to understand, number one, why is what this person done or said, why is it impacting me this way? Why am I letting it show up in so many different areas of my life in the different ways that it is? So I need to understand, and then I need to work with it, because I'm from the school of thought, if crazy shows itself as crazy, I am taking you as crazy. I'm not going to try and understand whether your crazy came when you were 2 years old or your crazy came when you were an adult, or I see you as crazy. It's crazy. So, and I think also it also depends on the relationship we're talking about. So we need to be able to very clear on what relationships we are talking. So if it's a, if it's a marital relationship, slightly different approach. If it's a friendship, if it's a sibling, but just overall for me, I need to work on my own feelings and emotions first, because me trying to dialogue with you when that hurt is still going on. Listen, I grew up in South London, and I don't know what I can liken South London like to those of you who live in the state. It's the hood, right?
It's
I go there
Chicago.
very
I lived,
Side of Chicago.
I lived there for a while.
That's
So
Chicago.
it's okay. But Dami, I think what you're describing, though, if you remember Lola's definition of forgiveness, is the conscious
Yeah.
effort to release. Now, it doesn't say anything about a mode or method or having a conversation with the other person or not. Everyone has their means by which they get to the point where they release that resentment. Right. And in your case, what I'm hearing is that you deal with releasing the resentment by healing yourself and getting over your hurt feelings, and you're able to release it. And so it doesn't necessarily, again, go back to this thing again, forgiveness doesn't necessarily have to engage the third party, right? Or the second or the other,
Yeah.
right? Directly.
Yeah.
You can essentially on your own go through your different emotions and get to the point where you release it. Now, in your mind, you may not have had the conversation with the individual. So maybe, sometimes, and I don't think that forgiveness is something that you release and it all releases off in one go, right? I feel like
No.
that's forgiveness in itself is a process. So I feel like we're all saying the same thing. It's just in the how. And like Lola pointed out earlier, there's no one size fits all. Everyone's different in how they approach. Like I would say, like, I'm very internal, I'm very retrospective, I'm very, you may not necessarily know what I'm thinking when I'm thinking it. But my husband, on the other hand, he has to be verbal. He has to express his heart. And I'm like, I have to talk about this again. And it's like, no, I haven't finished. He said something to me that is that I've learned over the years. I haven't finished talking about it, meaning it's still heavy on his heart. He still has some more to say on the same topic.
We have the same one.
Listen to it again, and that's the way that. And then once he's finished talking about it, then you wouldn't even hear. And me, I'm still, I'm still churning it, taking my time,
mulling it over.
Everyone is different in how they process it. But I think that it's that process. Once you realize that there's something that needs to be done here, and it's something that I have to actively do, then the process at which you get there may differ. But you may struggle with. Sometimes you realize I'm struggling. I'm trying to. Some things, like you said, some things you can let go and it's good. It's okay. And then you realize, no, I'm struggling here. Every time I think about it, the emotions just come right up. And so I need help. And that's where we seek help from God, from counselors, whatever we need, then we need to seek help.
If I can just add two very quick things to this, and one is in line with what we're talking about, and one I just want to take a bit of a different approach. The first one is, God gave us a very classic story in the Bible about the two servants, the guy who owed the king money. He couldn't pay back. He owed so much. If he was to pay back the king, it's like owing the king a couple of millions of dollars in taxes. And he went to beg the king, and the king forgave him of everything. And he was filled with so much joy. And then he popped down the road, and then he met somebody who forgot or who hadn't paid him back the $5,000 that they were owing. And he went off on the person, and he said, no, I'm not going to let this go. I can't believe you would do this. The day I gave you the 5,000, you promised me you would give it back. And he got the guy, he sort of put him in jail, but in a way, cut off from him, wanted to punish him and the rest of it. And God, of course, said when the king found out, he was very upset. He felt, what that servant did was really bad, because he felt he should still be introspective enough to realize that he also could have been, in a situation where he could have had a major judgment for what he did. And of course, we know the story was God trying to say, if I've forgiven you of a lot, you need to forgive other people. And sometimes we can say, "Hey, but it's 5,000." And God is saying, do you know what 1 million is? And I think that's where God helps us in that. And all of that isn't with the other person. That is where I think he comes in that letting go feelings. When he brings those stories, he's reminding you. He's not going to force us. I feel that the Lord is just reminding you each time to process and let go. And I think we just have to be very careful, that because sometimes it now comes close. Like we said, I think it was Bukit that said it. Sometimes we know we're going to forgive, but I just want them to know. So it's actually not, it's now this flesh in us that wants to feel like, I want her to know. And then we go into a place where God isn't there. Because God is like, if I want you to know what you did last week, if I want you to know what you did yesterday, and if I want you to know, I'm going to deal with it for what I already know you will do next week. So this is where, no matter how big it is, it's not easy when you're a child of God, because he really brings this thing. And this is where I want to pivot to. I feel that the Holy Spirit that is inside of us as children of God, and if you look at the scriptures, the Bible says, "Oh, no man, nothing but love." I think it behooves us to always recalibrate our relationships and also make sure that we are also sensitive to how we are dealing with people. I really feel, as I was listening to this and the examples we gave, I'm just sitting there, I just started saying to myself, how am I treating people? Will my action cause a person to go through the kind of turmoil that could take 7 years, 8 years? Is what I'm going to do because of my selfish desire or my nature, or, like somebody said, you're still holding on to this. I thought I had moved on. Is my selfish behavior grieving the hearts of people? Because God says we should not grieve the Holy Spirit. In other words, if you don't grieve the Holy Spirit, you are most likely not going to grieve people. And that's something that I know is very difficult. If we make a lot of effort not to grieve the Holy Spirit, in most cases, we will not grieve people. So God actually puts something on us. Because how do we grieve the Holy Spirit? By being careless with how we speak. When we just act anyhow, we grieve the Holy Spirit. But if we choose not to act anyhow, if we choose to be a bit more sensitive, it shows up in how we deal with people. So just listening to this, and again, thanks, Dami, for making it real, just to show how the real life impact of what we do with our children, our spouses, our siblings, our friends. Sometimes we just take it for granted, like Lola said, because you are my sibling, because you are my parent, because you are my child, because you are my cousin, you are assuming that I can't just let you go that easily. So you are not much more deliberate in how you treat me. I think we need to also look at that and be the one to say, I want to make sure I don't put somebody in a situation where I hurt them so much, they struggle to let go. They need to go to pray to God. They need to do all sorts because of what I've done. I want to just pray to God every day that I'm not that person. Like, people get upset at me, yes, but for me to grieve a person that much, I just pray to God, and I pray that that's one thing we take away, that we are deliberate about not grieving the Holy Spirit, because if we are deliberate about that, we will most likely not grieve people to that extent.
Brilliant.
So any tips for the person who says, help, I'm hurt and I can't let go? What is the summary of how does that person let go?
But the one tip I would say a little bit, I'll let everybody else jump in, I think I'll piggyback on one or two things that's been said here. It's really, and someone said it, that sometimes, although difficult, always remember that the not letting go is actually having a detrimental effect on you that could play up in your health, for example. Let's just leave it at that. So in a way, we cannot be selfish at the end of the day. If someone tells you that, what they did is bad, but if you don't let go, it's like you've just taken poison. In a way, it's at times it's a shift in the mind. You see, the issue of letting go, it's a mind position. It's a heart position. Sometimes if we realize that that person, God forbid, if we just see a picture of either the pain they are going through, and they say, if you don't let go, this is what will happen to them. In some cases, just having a bigger picture makes us say, it's not that serious. Please, it is well, be going. And sometimes we unless we allow, how do you let go? Allow the Holy Spirit help you work through it. Because there's a depth that he helps you go to deal, to say, like Dami said, Why did this grieve you so much? I felt deeply insulted. And then you hear God say, well, you are like my son, Jesus. You people
Mm.
that he created, you insulted him, but love allowed him to take it. Do you want to be like him? That's
Mhm.
something that the Holy Spirit say in your heart and nobody else can say. That will make you just pause. And all of a sudden, the love of God will just pour into your heart. And you're like,
Mm.
God, okay. Only God can do that. So for me as a Christian, I feel that leaning on God and the Holy Spirit a lot. Buki said, I don't know how, that's the only way I can say. There are other world techniques, but I would say that's one of those. Just really understanding how much you are loved and forgiven is one of the
Yeah.
ways, not the only way, because I feel God will work through it. It might take God even 3 months, but he will put all those little things there, put those things there for
Yeah.
you to be able to deal with it.
I think Nick kind of summarized the things that I had in mind. I think, folks, just understanding that you do still need that, recognizing that you still need to forgive, or you still need to let go of a past hurt is also very important. Like
Mhm.
Nika said, taking it to God, finding scripture that works for you, or finding scriptures, anchor scriptures that you can hold on to. I mean, we say these things, but they do help. When you'll be reminded when these things, when you have those anchor scriptures, you're reminded that, of it every time it comes along. Because there's a way that the Holy Spirit just helps us with our inadequacies and helps us move on from certain things. Also, you might get to a point where you do need to talk about it. You do need to talk about it either with, another trusted friend, somebody, either, somebody, you need to talk about it physically. You go ahead and, in a safe space. You might also find that it does take time. Sometimes I think that we're of this misnomer that, hey, it needs to happen and it needs to happen right now. And if it doesn't happen right now, I'm not a good Christian. I'm not doing the right thing. So you start to bring yourself down on guilt and you don't even get past it. So you try to fake it like, oh, I've forgiven, but it's still there. So it does
When it
take
comes back.
allow yourself that time to get through it.
Yeah. My tip that I'll say, and I totally echo what Buki has said and what Nika has said, but what I'd also like to add is the fact that you need to choose the stance of forgiveness. And I think from everything we've all said, the summation is that forgiveness is a choice, and you need to want to forgive, right? And the forgiveness is also not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of you saying, well, what they did was okay. You're not okaying that at all. What you're saying is, I need to free myself. I need to release this to God, let God step in and let him do what only he can do in this situation. And in the process of that release, your heart will get transformed, your heart will get renewed. All the change that needs to happen will happen. And when you do then see that person, have to encounter that person or that situation or that scenario, you will start to see that the pain and the hurt and the anger slowly releases. It wouldn't, right? It's not we'll have it, pop a pill and it's fine. It's a slow releasing effect that will take place as long as you continue to choose that stance of forgiveness. And that's my tip. And it's hard and it's difficult. And it will cause you to cry a few times. It will cause you to scream a few times, but that's the process. That is the process that needs to happen to birth the new you that is filled with love and that's ready to, to move on. That's my tips.
That's perfect.
Wow,
Thank
wow.
you.
This has been, thank you. This is, for me, I know we have a lot of amazing sessions, but this was a session that even as I was listening, I was taking in so much. And I really, really felt that we had a very amazing, powerful moment here, because I think every one of us either have gone through very hurtful relationships that we've had to deal with or work through. We are in one right now, or unfortunately, we are going to have one that's going to come up, or have someone very close to us experience this. And I believe that today we really had the tools to help us. I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone for joining us today. It was an awesome session. We'll be back on September 3rd and continue with our help series. So this is season 3 of My Take. I can't believe it is amazing. And in the next episode, we're going to be talking about help. My child is being bullied. This is a serious situation going on, impacting our children's mental health. We're hearing so many negative things. It breaks our hearts to even hear of young children losing their lives or feeling they have to take their lives because they were bullied. We need to address this. Social media is becoming a menace in our society to a certain extent, and I think we need a lot of wisdom. So please join us on September 3rd as we talk through Help My Child is Being Bullied. And if you haven't, we would love for you to support us by joining, subscribing to our YouTube channel. We are very social, and you can like today's session and also join us on all our social media channels as well. We really look forward to connecting with you again. Thank you, everyone, and have a lovely, lovely weekend. Bye, everyone. Bye.